Speculation uncensored.
You ready for the pizza?
Get ready for the pizza, yes. Welcome to another installment to the Forlorn Dopes. I am your host, Cybersmily.
I am your co-host, Wisdom. Greetings, programs. We're back with another episode.
Yes, it's been a little while, but we're here.
Yeah,
We're living.
I had to take a little break. But we are, like you said, we are here today. We're going to review Chromebook 2, perennial favorite. We're going to talk a little about, the Cyberpunk franchise as well as the Cyberpunk in general, as far as media and things that are going on.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. So, I just, I guess since last we talked, I got two audio books about Afrofuturism and African futurism. One was called
Sweet.
the Memory Librarian by Janelle Monáe. Her fame is she is a singer, artist, very, I guess, all-round kind of actress as well. So she's been in quite a few little short films, but she collaborated with a bunch of authors and created a compilation of short stories called the Memory Library, or aka the Dirty Computer. I would say so. It's 4 stories, based in a dystopian future. So the world is the thing that ties them all together from a story point of view. However, the last 2 stories, one gets into time dilation, which it's sci-fi, but it's not, I would say, pure cyberpunk. Yeah. And then the other one gets into kind of like alter realities, and things of that nature, which again got more into mysticism than true technology. But overall, I think they were all good. The first 2 stories were interesting. I don't want to give out spoilers. But
Time travel can still allow for cyberpunk adjacency. Just look at Back to the Future Part 2 or Time Cop.
Yep. So I recommend it. Check him out. Another African futurist cyberpunk book was Noor by, and I am going to just butcher her name, Nendi Okorafor. Hope I pronounced that right. I probably didn't. I probably butchered it because I am too much of a Anglo to really try to learn any language other than English is hard
Without
for
seeing
me.
it written,
Yeah,
I can't be of much help either.
Yeah, English is my. I can barely get English done, let alone try to wrap my head around. Especially like the Eastern European names.
Yeah.
But so this book was called Noor. It was a novel based in.
Is that Noor or Noir?
It's
Noir or
no, it's Noor. So Noor, like door, or more, or floor.
Yeah.
So Noor.
Okay. I was just getting some clarification on that for when I go looking for it.
So it's Noor. It is based in Nigeria, and it kind of blends dystopian, high tech, and low tech. So it's a combination of someone coming from the technical world, right? Basically a cyborg who she's on the run and hooks up with a plainsman uh, on the um, on the plains of Africa or Nigeria. Um, and there is an evil corporation involved. I'm not going to spoil all of it, but it was definitely a great read. I think I'm going to pick up some other novels from her, from the author.
I mean,
Um,
that sounds pretty badass. Like,
yeah,
there's not a part of that I'm not interested in.
so we will see. I hope all our sounds coming in. I saw that earlier today when I was booting up my machine. There was some complications, but according to OBS, it looks good. But if you guys hear anything odd or not even hearing us, let us know. So if you're not hearing us, you ain't gonna tell us. So yeah, so
That's
definitely
true.
check out those two novels. The other
Um,
thing is, I think Dark Horse dropped uh, the
last
last,
issue of
I can't remember the name of it.
2077. It is Kickdown. Kickdown.
Takedown. Yeah. Did they? I think it's supposed to the last version of
Issue
that supposed
four.
to be.
Like, they've all been 4-issue series. Like, that's been the standard format,
I
with
think.
the exception of like some of the like the side stuff that came out, like the online comics they put out, or that, like, there was a Polish graphic novel that came out.
Right. So
Um,
hopefully they're gonna start lining up another series.
I mean, I have to believe that they've all been fairly successful, or to some degree, or they wouldn't have kept making as many as they did. So I'm definitely hoping we get more. I very much enjoyed the Kickdown. It's basically Cyberpunk Fast and the Furious, but only the first movie, because everything after that gets stupid.
Yeah.
Uh, I've also I've been reading a book just came out called Skin Police, which it's kind of cyberpunk, or at least cyberpunk adjacent. Um, it takes place in the future, where for a while cloning was happening, but it got made illegal. But so there's all these illegal clones running around, and they might not even know they're clones. So these cops are going along and, Blade Runner style, retiring them. I've only read the first issue so far, but I enjoyed it. It laid out an interesting premise of, what if everything you thought about yourself was a lie? Uh, I've also been reading a book called Lotus Land. It's cyberpunk, or at least, again, like, it's only the first issue, so I'm not sure if it's truly cyberpunk or just cyberpunk adjacent. But so far, it seems pretty straightforward. Um,
Are these like graphic novels or they're actually books?
they're just like, no, they're
Novels.
comics. They're
Okay.
like single issues.
Yeah.
uh,
Trying to check those out.
on the movie front, there hasn't been a whole lot lately, but I did watch Netflix drop something called The Uglies, which it's based on a young adult novel, and it's one of the dumbest things I've ever watched. Like, it's dumb the same way that Hunger Games is just dumb. Like, the inner the inner mechanics of it don't make any sense.
Oh, come on.
Um,
Don't
yeah,
you're
it's.
telling me there's no John Cusack with his boombox over his head belting out
I mean,
Peter
I'm
Gabriel?
sure there will be that at some point, because that's teenage romance. But right now, it's too busy stumbling over itself, with the first movie trying to set up the world, but the world it doesn't make sense. Like it's kind of like the Purge in that regard, like the polar opposite of the Purge, but similar in the sense that any deep thought about it, anything beyond surface level acceptance of the basic premise, just leaves the whole thing pointless. Like
Right.
this shit would never happen. Like it would never go down this way. And if this stuff did happen, it would look far, far different and be much, much worse.
Well, another thing I stumbled on, and Netflix, and supposedly the release date is tomorrow, November 21st. It's called Tokyo Override. It's an anime. Looks like it's definitely near future cyberpunk kind of thing. It's basically a motorcycle gang.
Ooh.
I don't have much details on it because I'm looking at their Wikipedia thing. There's nothing there. I looked under IMDb. There wasn't much there. The studio that's creating it is Yamaha Motor Company, Honda.
Well,
So,
at least the motorcycles will look good.
so that's kind of interesting. But there should be a trailer out there that's called Tokyo Override. Let's check again to see if there's any information in IMDb. In the future Tokyo, a teenage orphan hacker gets embroiled in a murder case connected to a drug ring after assisting outcast bikers, revealing the city's dark underbelly.
Well, that sounds freaking awesome.
Dark underbelly beneath its utopian facade. So,
Oh, yeah, that sounds pure cyberpunk.
yeah, I don't know how I stumbled it. I think on YouTube. It like one of the algorithm kind of bubbled this up to me.
Yeah, that's weird. I hadn't heard about this at all.
Yeah, and I've been searching for like cyberpunk, dystopian future
Yeah. I mean,
media, and
half the stuff I watch on Netflix is anime and everything cyberpunk that comes across, and I hadn't heard about this until you mentioned it today.
yeah, check out the trailer. It looks good.
Speaking of trailers, it looks like they dropped a trailer for Blade Runner. Um, the new anime of that. That looks pretty good. Not gonna spoil anything, but uh, it's definitely looking professional and really slick.
That's Blade Runner 2099.
Yeah, with Michelle Yeoh as one of the lead characters. I'm all in.
Definitely. Yeah, Michelle Yeoh is like, she's a busy lady. She's doing
She is super busy.
Section 31 for Star Trek, isn't she?
Yeah, I don't follow Star Trek. Like that's just not my bag. But apparently, she was like in the first couple of episodes of Discovery, I want to say, and her character was pretty popular there. So it's like a spin-off of that, I guess.
Yeah. So, I have yet to hear anything out of CDPR and any statuses from them. Been meaning to check their latest. What is that? They have a kind of podcast that they do. I don't know if they've dropped anyone decent, but
On the actual franchise front, Art Talsorian released another DLC for Tales from the Forlorn Hope, the new one today.
Hope Reborn.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they did a lot of support for VTT with this download. I also appreciate
Well,
that
that's
they
groovy.
took all the little bits and pieces throughout uh, Hope Reborn and kind of put them all and centralized them all into one big document.
Oh, that's nice.
So you don't have to go hunting for a particular piece of equipment that might be in the book somewhere, buried.
Yeah, because I don't know. That's the thing with adventure source books is there's always that bit of something you're looking for that you can never find. You know it's in there, but so anything that helps with that front, I'm all for. And I like that. I like the ongoing support. Uh, I don't think I don't think November's DLC has dropped yet.
Wasn't that this DLC?
Oh, I guess that is. I guess that is the DLC for November. For some reason, I was thinking it was separate, but that makes much more sense.
So, yeah. Um, yeah, so kind of learned that the Night City source book, so that is supposedly going to be, I think, is in the works. From what I understand, things are starting to cook up there. Um,
Yeah, yeah, that's one of those eagerly awaited ones. That Rusted Chrome. Um, I mean, Night City is the original Night City source book is, as far as I'm concerned, the best for any RPG out there. It's the best city source book I've ever seen. Maybe Waterdeep or Bard's Gate come close, um, but it's a real Cyber Night City is just fantastic. I don't know anybody who it's not who plays the game who it's not in one of their in their top 5 books.
yeah, I think that if I'm a little bit of an old school with the city state of the Invincible Overlord, I think that was probably one of the well, it definitely was the first city book ever published with
Well,
such great
yeah, you
detail.
can go through like old gazetteers and whatnot, but you're getting into some minutia stuff.
Yeah, but I'm talking city state of the Invisible
Invincible
Overlord.
Overlord, it's
Yeah,
fantastic. Don't get me wrong; like it was way ahead of its time,
so
and like ridiculously ambitious.
yeah,
Uh, especially in regards to what was being published at the time and what
yeah.
people were doing.
I want to say, granted, I haven't looked. Now, but they pretty much, I think, had every single building labeled out with something in. I just loved the humongous map it had.
It did in fact have a humongous map. Not the best drawn map, but it was
No, this was
humongous.
the early days, right? I mean, art back
Yeah,
then
no,
was
late 70s, early 80s, like it's rough.
yeah.
We're talking the Errol Otis days of high
Yeah.
adventure.
We're also talking like some of that art was like one step above stick figures
Yeah,
in some
like
of it.
it. People look at the art of Dungeons and Dragons today, and all I can ever think about is, oh, back in the 80s, Dungeons and Dragons ads in comic books like had their own little like one-page story snippets, and the art was just so god awful. Like I don't even want to play this game.
But things have changed. The art for all games has definitely improved
Yeah,
over the
it's
years.
stepped up.
So, anything else? Any other things around Cyberpunk that you talk about?
Uh
Us?
that's that's all that I've got floating around at the top of my head. I'm sure at some point something will remind me of something else, and rant about it then. But right now, yeah, that's about all I got.
All right. So let's get into Chromebook 2, which is
My
the second largest Chromebook.
Yeah, and my personal favorite.
I have to agree. I mean, it definitely was a supplement that changed Cyberpunk 2020 um, in various ways, just because of the degree of how much uh, stuff was added to the game.
Yeah. Um, I mean, above anything else, it's the book that added full conversion cyborgs to the game, which meant people could finally play, like, have actual rules for playing things like Appleseed and Ghost in the Shell and RoboCop, things like that, where cybernetics are beyond just, simple replacement parts.
Yep. And they also introduced exotics. So if you want to play
Yeah,
Shadowrun in Cyberpunk 2020, you now can, because you get
get your furry on.
exactly. So the contributing writers for this book were our man Ben Wright, Mike
Yeah,
Rader, Scott Taylor, Marcus Pregent, Craig Sheely, Mike McDonald, Ross Wynn, Mike Pondsmith, Colin Tipton, and Michael Todd. And for the amount of art that's in this book, there seemed to be only 4 artists, which were Benjamin Wright, Gloria Yu Jenkins, Harrison Fong, and Tim Eldred.
yeah. The Benjamin Wright stuff it stands out above anything else. Benjamin Wright and Harrison Fong's stuff.
So, um, let's get into it. So, I think we're going to follow the same kind of format we did before. Um, what's your favorite piece
You
of
just want to,
cyberware? Right?
yeah, just like list three for each
Yep.
section of the book a piece. Yeah,
What
that works.
What's your favorite? What was the ones you used most often, and then which ones you didn't like?
Yeah, that
So,
works for me. I think it worked well the first time we did it. So yeah.
so the three that I thought it was just maybe it's one, but
Okay.
you know,
Well, I mean, let's start it properly. The first section of Chromebook 2 is cyberware,
yep,
so people know what we're talking about.
right.
All right, go ahead.
So I will have to say that the digits um, were my favorite, just because of the
The quick
concept.
change mounts for the cyber fingers. Fuck
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, the items that I probably used the most was the various levels of skin weave. uh,
Yeah,
and
that's. I mean, skin weave, the gradiated subdermal armor and skin weave. They really kind of changed the game as far as like people abusing that because it added concealability ratings for both of them. Um, so you didn't want to go too high. 12 was still where it kind of normed out, but
yeah,
even then, the skin's looking a little rubbery.
I think we said the rule of cool, which is what was the coolest piece of cyberware. Um,
Yeah,
I don't know. I think the retractable vampires are probably the coolest for me, just to have them.
really.
Yeah,
Okay.
just because when you have a person and they you describe to the players, oh yeah, you walk into the fixer, he grins at you, and then all of a sudden you see his fangs drop. Um, Kind of would get them paranoid, right? And kind of give you a set the players off on edge. I think it's cool in that way that it can cause players to think or get a little more paranoid if a
Yeah.
NPC is doing that to them.
Not to mention, you can have a mouth weapon that doesn't look out of place most time.
True, true.
It's always better to be looking normal for the most part until you don't want to look normal anymore.
What are your
All right.
favorites, most used, and think is the coolest?
um, let's see. Most used would probably be honestly, yeah, most used is probably the upgraded skin weave. Like just um, once my players got to put in lesser, like lower levels of skin weave, that it became much more commonplace.
Yep.
Um, it didn't hurt that I raised the prices of that. Like I added a 0 to all the prices. Um, but yeah, uh, I think my personal favorite, my rule of cool, uh, just the bitchinest is the remote eye. Like being able
Yeah.
to take your eyeball out and like toss it into a room and have it move around by itself. That
Yeah.
shit's awesome, and it actually showed up in the movie Doomsday. I'm positive that this is where they got it from.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Like, I know I've seen that in a movie somewhere. But
Yeah,
yeah, Doomsday.
Doomsday, the
Yeah.
that weird starts out cyberpunk, moves post-apocalypse.
Like medieval apocalypse. Well, actually, apocalypse and then
Yeah,
medieval.
yeah, like the dude's living in a Renaissance festival castle. Like the fuck. Right after they get done with the like wasteland raiders driving around in a car covered in human skin. Like, it's a crazy movie. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's got a cybernetic eye that she can take out and toss on the floor. Um, I think my least favorite, if I really had to, if I really had to put it down, my least favorite is the anchoring cyberfoot. Um, just because I never could figure out what the hell you would actually use it for. I know why it exists, um, but it wouldn't be any good for climbing. Uh, and there's no gun that even a full conversion is going to be firing that's man portable that's powerful enough that it would require that.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a neat idea. I just never could figure out what the hell you would ever use it for.
I mean, it's definitely very niche, right?
Yeah,
Um,
like it makes a very strong visual in the mind of like a big spike shooting out of the bottom of your foot and like anchoring you to the ground. But yeah, like what would you ever use that for?
brace yourself against a Mack truck coming and ramming you. If you're a cyborg.
I mean, do you want to be braced on the ground if a Mack truck is sure, it'll still stay stuck in the ground, but you might lose your like it just cut you off at the ankles at that point.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, that's my least favorite piece of cyberware.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, there. I don't know. It seems like there's not as much cyberware in this particular uh,
No, cyberware is a very short
Chromebook.
section in this book, which is weird.
Then we move on to equipment, which basically runs the gamut of various things.
Yeah, this section is not small.
No. For me, I think the main The rule of cool. Well, the thing I use most, or at least I have had on my characters the most, is the wearable computers. Um,
Yeah, that's
just
cool.
because I play a lot of medtechs and fixers or netrunners, so I always wanted to have that capability. Um, to just have always have a computer ready to go. Um,
Yeah, and it's nice. It's nice giving you a portable computer that wasn't just a cyber deck.
yep. The God, there's so much stuff in here. um, I think the rule of cool. I'm gonna have to say maybe the suit.
The ghost suit's very fucking cool. Now I got to think of something else.
But then I also like the shock, this personal electronic field that they have,
uh
which I kind of like as well. Um, but to me, the dumbest thing was the dance bracelets. It reminds me of those old that toy with the drumsticks where you waved them about and tried to
Oh,
play the drums
yeah,
in the air.
very much so. Very much so. It was not the greatest idea. I
Yeah.
mean, but you got to have stuff like that. You've got to have just the mundane shit. Like teenagers would buy that shit in droves, just like they bought those fucking air drum things. Now it only lasted for like 6 months, but for that 6 months, I was seeing that shit everywhere.
Yep.
the 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 DPI body rhythm dance bracelets. What's funny is how expensive they are.
Yeah. Yeah. For something that a player might buy.
Yeah,
But yeah, this section had a lot of great little gadgets, like for
it's
everything.
very much a really groovy little gadget uh, source book, basically. Um, all right, what that's all three of yours.
Yeah.
Um, for the most used, it's kind of a toss up between the bug detector and the window trembler. They do the opposite things of each other, but like there was a lot of heist planning in my games, and uh, a lot of backroom dealings and espionage type stuff. So those both came in really handy. Those got used a
Yeah, that
lot.
the spy gadgets that are in this supplement pretty good.
They are. I mean, they're all fucking. Pardon my language. They're all bitching. Um, Rule of cool. Man, there is just so much really cool shit in here. Um, you already said the ghost suit, so I gotta go with. Um, okay, at the time in the '90s when we still thought cell phones were going to be these giant bricks that we carried around, uh, all the cell phone options. I thought those were really cool in the '90s. Now looking back, like this shit is just standard on everything, with the
I
exception of
know.
like fax interfaces. But yeah, you got video, you got cyber modem interface. Like you don't need that because all phones are smart now. Like every cell phone is basically its own cyber deck. Uh, I mean, in the '90s, this shit looked so fucking far fetched and futuristic to be able to put all this in a little box. Man. So Rule of Cool, just nostalgia's sake, that one goes for me. I also like the armored stockings, just because who says you can't be sexy and well protected at the same time?
Agreed.
The least, the thing I like the least, that's actually fairly difficult in this one. Oh, I also really dug the Raven Microside NetVision IG algorithm glasses, which let other people just basically tag along with the Netrunner and just watch what he's doing. Like, not really useful in any way, but fun.
Agreed.
Honestly, the medic gear combat medical armor, it just seems really expensive for what it does. And doesn't really, like, it's got an encumbrance value of -3. That's pretty. That's like Metal Gear encumbrance values for basically what is like a jumpsuit with some armor plating on it.
True, but I think it has a lot more to it, right? Because it's also doesn't it have an integrated
Sure,
computer and
yeah, it's got like spray skin sprayers in the wrist and all sorts of stuff. But the encumbrance value of -3, but it only adds a +2 to your on the spot medical rolls. So you're actually losing a plus.
yeah, but you're a med tech. You're not a you're not a hey. I'm gonna
Right.
go fight people.
MedTech to be -1 when he's trying to save my life.
Yeah, but he's not.
Encumbrance values are, I don't know. It's just not my favorite. Like I think they could have done it better.
Okay. No judge. I have to like it because I like med techs.
Because you played MedTechs, yeah. My brother loves it too. He plays MedTechs.
Of course, the craziest image in this book, I think, didn't age well. The Scan
Man. I don't know that it aged poorly. It's not like you see anything, although the guy winking is kind of lecherous.
Kinda?
But I mean, the actual, I don't know. It was a thing. It was in the book because it showed up in Total Recall, and they wanted to have something like that.
Yeah. Well, there was always the concept that this would eventually happen, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's happening right now.
Exactly. But, yeah.
And lecherous perverts abound.
Yes. But, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of gear. I think that's what made this game, or made this supplement interesting, because it didn't just get into, stuff that you would just need for being on a mission, right? You also had like entertainment stuff.
Yeah, like video games and shit.
This also was the first time it has drones and introduced the remote control skill.
Yeah, I like that they just treat them like little robots, because drones wasn't really a common term at the time.
Yep. And I think the thing that really at least in my games, that players loved was the Sega Atari rush system,
Yeah.
just because it was you gain skills so quick, um,
Mm-hmm.
and even to a level that's equivalent to skill chips.
Yeah. And you got to keep them. Like they
Yeah,
weren't skill chip dependent.
and they can they can grow afterwards. So my players would just use those constantly during their downtime.
You add that to yeah, the Scholar Home Learning System.
Yep.
Yeah. Learning via brain dance.
And I think that's kind of a good device, especially for referees, is because if you're sending your players on a specific mission, here's a way in which you can say, hey, you guys need this skill, right? Go train it. So the fixer would be like, okay, I need a demo guy. Okay, none of us know demo. Okay, here's a chip, go learn it. Take the, was it 4 or 5 days?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it weeks? A week per skill level? I forget which it was.
Yeah. That's I'm pretty sure it's a week. Got to go back and find it.
Yes. Right, so for each +1, you have to have a 6-hour lesson plus 1 day of practice per lesson.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's actually much faster than I thought.
yeah.
But yeah.
So 4 days to get a level 2.
Like in my game, like nomads prize these things more than food almost, because education is such an important part of their culture.
Yep. Yeah, actually. So I think that actually is one of the better, the rule of cool, or one of the best pieces of tech that's in this section.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's way too much to choose from. Like, I'm just like, all this shit is cool.
Yeah.
There's a reason this is my favorite Chromebook.
Right. So now we're moving on to weapons.
Yep.
And again, crazy weapons that came out in this supplement. Um, like Chrome One was basic pistols, basic SMGs. This
Mm-hmm.
is just pure exotics. Even though they say that they are a rifle or a pistol, but this is where
Yeah.
you
No,
got,
this is where all the crazy shit really comes in.
yeah, this is where future weapons really comes in, for the game. So for me, the love of my life is a Volt pistol. Um,
Really.
yes, I've said this before on previous episodes.
And I say really every time,
Just because it.
thinking that you've changed your mind over
No,
time.
no,
But
no,
no.
no, no, not gonna change it, man. 3d6 avoids armor,
Yeah. No, it's badass. It's
shorts
just
out
so
people.
goofy.
So I mean, just the
No,
bypassing
it's
of
neat.
armor.
Like I give you shit, but like uh I could see this being like the standard sidearm on Crystal Palace because it doesn't
Yep.
shoot bullets.
Well, the one
But
thing you want to avoid on Crystal Palace is also shorting out systems
sure,
if you miss.
there's always a downside.
But yeah, and just like I said, the this is the kind of weapon that people always say, the armor gets so out of control. This weapon negates that. So definitely a weapon to use. So that's
I mean, there's a lot of weapons in here that like get around that whole armor's out of control nonsense.
For the rule of cool. I gotta go with the Chain Ripper.
the chain, like a knife sized
Yeah,
chainsaw. Like
yeah. The
this shit's super
IMI chain
badass.
knife. And then I think, man, I would say Drug a Thug. I never got into.
I love Drug a Thug.
Those are my three.
All right. Um, my favorite. Well, you you went with the. You already mentioned the chain knife. I'm gonna have to say I like a little bit of overkill in the middle. Militech Urban Missile Launcher is just ridiculous. Like magazine fed micro missile launcher with 12 rounds, shoots two at a rate of fire of two. It's a beast.
Ooh,
Like
I
it's
forgot that was in the section.
yeah. If you going back to Tales from the Forlorn Hope, um, Sissy and Chrissy, this is the weapon I gave them because they're the only ones I could think crazy enough to use this shit.
Yeah. But the other thing, like my second choice of a thing that I would use is the pistol grenades with the heat rounds.
The pistol grenades are cool. Um, I really liked that they gave us. This is the book that they gave us the first taste of multiple ammunition types, specialty ammunitions like armor piercing and uh, fragmenting, hollow point, like like pistol or rifle, shotgun shells. Like this is where we first get that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Um, let's see, most used in my game. Uh, I'm gonna probably have to go with oh, what's it called? Hold on, I gotta flip through here because I forgot the name of it. Um, the Tektronica M40 pulse rifle,
Really? That was the
directed
most used.
EMPs at people in cop campaigns. Like between that and like some of the weapon modifications, particularly the 911 chip in the weapon.
Yep.
And the cookie cutter, so you can't shoot your buddies. And like every time you pull the trigger, it calls the cops. Like
Yep.
for the police, this stuff, like half the police cruisers carried pulse rifles because what are you gonna do when you're dealing with a cyber psycho? You hit him with an EMP.
Right.
And pray for the best. Man, there's so many weapons.
I know.
All right. It's a three-way tie on my least favorites. I hate the Nova 338 City Gun.
Yeah.
It's just so goofy. And I don't understand why it's there. Like, I guess it's kind of neat. It's a cyberpunk idea.
But it seemed to be forward heavy.
Yeah, really forward heavy. Like it's the cylinder is way forward, and then there's a barrel extension on top of that, so at least it has some kind of accuracy. But it's so big, and it's a 7-shot 6-shooter. I don't know. I never cared for it. I didn't like the spawn knife. I like the idea is neat. It just seemed too advanced for Cyberpunk with the whole memory metal thing.
Yeah, agreed.
And I know memory metal actually exists, But the idea of putting it in that small of a package and having it only be $450, I can't see that.
Oh man, I forgot about the Dachi monowire we had with.
Well, and my actual least favorite is electrothermal ammo enhancement
Really?
because it was so fucking overused and abused.
Well, I think it was used to combat the armor propagation, right?
Sure, sure, but when you realize you can get like an old Barrett 50 caliber and throw electro and thermal enhancement on that, and suddenly you're doing 6 die 10 damage. Like, where do you go from?
This is the book that introduced full body conversions, so
Yeah, yeah.
60-10
I mean,
damage.
it's got its place, but I had them using this against other people, like just flesh target and vaporizing them. And there's only so many ways I can describe vaporization before it gets boring.
Right. Yeah, so
And don't get me wrong, in those situations, if you're going up against full conversions, it's very useful to have this. If you're in a hardcore military campaign, sure.
agreed.
But just running around the street with like a 44 Magnum electrothermally enhanced to take on Dwayne the crack dealer down the street, it's a little overkill.
Yep. So the next section is called Teams, which is kind of similar to the services from Chrome One, but basically it's corporations providing a service, usually involving some type of team or individual to help you out.
It's like a very small version of what's the cat girl thing?
Danger Gal.
Danger Gal. Yeah, it's like a very small version of that.
Yeah, I want to say I've used pretty much all of these teams in various games of mine. I wouldn't say I concentrated more on one than the other.
Yeah.
Maybe the cybernetic intervention service was probably the least used. But yeah, I've been in games where I was, part of the lifetime escort service. Teams have to get going and getting or stealing from Sphere Courier, Orion, working for Orion. My previous game, theirs was.
I liked the auto jocks. They showed up in my game quite a bit.
Yeah.
Just as a netrunner temporary service, like you need to hire a netrunner for the day, here's who you call.
And it's interesting that Project Orion from CDPR is, and you have Orion the corporation. So, is there a connection? Of course, neither Art Talsorian or CDPR is willing to say yay or nay.
I mean, it's possible. They went off on some weird tangents in the game, like small things that became very important.
Yep.
Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, so be interesting to see what they use, if they use it. Do you have any preference other than AutoJack or anything else you want to contribute to this particular section?
I mean, I didn't use any of them really as like as written. Like I would rename them or whatever. Um, with the exception of the cybernetic intervention services. Um, I actually had them as a competing as like a competing force with both C SWAT and Trauma Team. Like there'd be like a three-way standoff as to who got to rescue who at any given time. So that was neat. But the rest of them, like lifetime escort service and whatnot, like I'd use them, but I'd usually change the name or they'd just be like something in the background.
Right. So, moving on to the next section, which is
The big one.
Big one, the full body conversion. So this, the most used full body conversion in my games has always been the Gemini. Hands down.
Yeah. Because again, you want to look normal until it's time not to.
The rule of cool, I would have to go the Eclipse. Just because of it being the assassin.
Mm-hmm.
One I didn't understand is probably the Aquarius. And again, I wasn't into too much Ocean Punk. But I can see it being very useful if you're doing an Ocean Punk campaign. For me, it was just meh.
For me, all right, since you went with Gemini, I'll go with Alpha class as being the most used because it's the basic model.
Yeah.
And until Mike Van Atta from the Views from the Edge forums came out with his absolutely brilliant cheap FBCs and cyberwares from around the world, this was as low end as you could get for cyberware. So it was your beginning body. So that was the most used. My rule of cool, I actually have to give to the Aquarius. It's a very specific, very niche full conversion, but it's also one that I could see being necessary, especially for like deep dive environments or anything like that. I just think it's really cool. I also really liked the most used beyond the alpha is the enforcer because I ran so many cop campaigns. My least favorite, I've gotta say, it's the Dragoon. Just because every time anybody sees one of those, anytime one of your players sees a Dragoon, they're like, "I want to be one of those." I'm like, you can't be one of those. You can't handle that level of humanity loss. And even if you go for the biopod route, you still have to spend most of your time in a different body, or you're going to go insane, and then your character becomes mine, and you're going to cry at me. There was a lot of that. Like a Dragoon works best as a bad guy.
Yeah. Well, if you're running a military campaign in which the whole group is a squad of them, right?
I can't see how that would be any fun at all because there is no if you're a squad of dragoons, there's no such thing as downtime for you. Like you're not after you get back to base, you're just sitting in a chair waiting for the next call and
no,
being entertained by brain dance.
Yeah, sure. Oh, you could do body swap right out of it. It has to be
Sure,
some downtime for your.
but if that's the case, then that's not really your body. It's like driving a car. You get issued it and then you give it back.
True.
Like if you try and go off on your own in that body, that's basically the end of the camp. Even if you manage to keep your sanity, like what are you gonna do? You can't go to the bar. You don't ever need to go to the bar again. Um, you'd go insane just from boredom because you wouldn't be able to interact with anybody without having like every military and police force in the region called out on you.
Yeah.
When the 7 foot tall walking murder machine shows up, even if it's got smiley faces painted on it and it's carrying some flowers, he's not welcome.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Well, that's the thing, right? When we were talking with Benjamin, um,
mm-hmm.
that's why it was created, was to be the ultimate weapon in the game.
Yeah, and it very much is. It is the bad guy that your players should be terrified of. But it's not something you can play and have any form of real autonomy anymore whatsoever. Like even if it's a temporary body and you get put into it, you're at during while the time you're in it, you're gonna be operating at a very limited capacity as far as, independent thought or any of that.
True. Very
Like
true.
the body's own programming will be so overwhelming that like you might be able to make some decisions for it, but you're not going to be able to get all that clever.
True. Yeah, so that's
It's got its place, and its
definitely.
place is in the GM's toolbox.
And I think this is the Chromebook that brought Cyberpunk to another level. Even though soon after or right before they came out with Maximum Metal, but
when we talked to Benjamin, he was all like, and when we talked to Craig Sheely, they worked on these things completely independent of each other. Like they didn't even know what the other person was doing.
Yep.
So you got some people working on Max Metal, and some people and the power armor in there, and some people working on the full conversions here, and like the rules aren't necessarily consistent between them because there wasn't any collaboration.
And again,
there should have been.
I would take a squadron of dragoons over an ACPA. I should put a caveat. Open terrain, probably the ACPAs, but in closed terrain and urban terrain, the dragoons definitely.
Dragoon is smaller. It's basically armed and equipped the same way. It's got pretty much like the powered armor at the higher end will be stronger, but it's not going to be anywhere near as maneuverable as a full conversion.
Yep. So, on to
vehicles. I mean,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I was just going to say dragoons are terrifying.
Yeah.
No matter what environment you throw them into.
Yeah. So the last Forlorn dopes after we did this shit, talked a little about this section artwork, and I found a lot of the artwork to be in this section really janky, but that's my opinion. I prefer the artwork for Chrome 1 vehicles over this one, but
I'm a bit more forgiving of it. Some of the art I really like in this section. I will say it's really weird that all the cars have fender covers on the front wheels.
Yeah.
And I don't understand how that works. Like they're not hinged, They're just full on covers, and you can see that the wheel is pretty much right up against them, like the back wheel is. So it just doesn't make any, like, that aspect doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But they look neat.
They do. So for this section, I would say the Ashigaru was probably my motorcycle of choice or vehicle of choice in the vehicles in here. From a rule of cool, it's a toss up between the Mach and the Swan. Really like the Swan because it had that limousine kind of like look to it.
Yeah, the Swan's gorgeous.
And I'm gonna give an honorable mention to Madison Avenue advert blimp, just because they added it, and that's kind of a
having stats for one of the blimps that you always see floating around the city. It was necessary.
And the worst one, in my opinion, and again, this is just based on the art, is the Crowder. I get the concept of the car, but that piece of art is just so janky. I mean, it looks it looks like there's like a bend in the chassis, in the transmission.
Yeah. The back end is really fat. It's true. And it's got those weird, like, fender covers on the front. I don't know how that's supposed to work. All right. My favorite vehicle in here, bar none, rule of cool, this is my favorite one, is the Bermuda. I think that thing is bitchin'. Like, that is... when this book came out, like, that was what my Nomad drove. Like, that thing is badass. It is your Cyberpunk chopper.
Did you put on the Gorilla handlebars as a aftermarket?
No, because I think ape hangers look stupid, but that's me. Like, it's just not my thing. The most used, I mean, honestly, the most used was probably the Swan, just because, like you said, it's like an executive personal AV. But since you chose that one already, you kind of cheated by choosing both that one and the Mach. The Interceptor. The Interceptor was heavily used by Highway Patrol in my game. Again, the front wheels are stupid, but the car itself is pretty badass.
That spoiler and air dams. Oh yeah.
You just gotta pick it apart, bastard. I mean, actually, the Toyo 17 Chevy was pretty popular too.
I mean, the Max Interceptor is definitely like going to a teenager and saying, "Draw a future car." Like a 13-year-old or 14-year-old car guy. Hey, give me a future car.
My least favorite is the GD F36 Comet. It just looks so fucking goofy. Like, there's cool ideas there.
Yeah.
But the things at the end of the wings, like, they make no sense. The ailerons make no sense. I think it's supposed to be a forward swept wing.
Right.
Yeah, it says forward swept wings, but the art doesn't really
convey that.
I don't know. It's just like, I like the cockpit area, like the nose of the plane.
Well, it definitely reminds me of like a mecha, early anime mecha fighters.
Oh, it reminds me of what was that video game? It was a whole series. Was it Star Commander?
Okay, yeah.
Something like that. It reminds me of that. Like, I don't know. It would be a better spaceship than a fighter jet. Yeah, those tail fins are just what the fuck is that? It makes no sense. Anyway, yeah, that's my least favorite. I liked the Fed Boeing Falcon, the big cargo plane. I thought that was pretty bitchin'.
Yeah, again, the great thing about this Chromebook is it introduced other things that the players
Yeah,
aren't going to buy, but are useful to add into your game. Like, hey, you guys start to board the Fed Boeing Falcon to go off to Budapest to go take care of a job for EBM.
exactly. Or hey, you're getting on the Hummingbird, which is this corporate fucking jet, and they're giving you a luxury trip to meet the guy in charge. Like this stuff, like you said, it's not the players. The players aren't going to own this shit, but the people the players work for would, or the people the players, or it's a target in and of itself. Like this stuff needed to be in the game. It needed to be statted up. It needed to be represented,
Yep, definitely.
just like the blimps.
So the next second is exotics, and I think this is the first uh, Chromebook that introduced additional rules
Yeah,
to the system. Just because I think from the full body conversion, you know, I'm sure Derek was figuring, okay, we need something to deal with full body conversions and exotics. How do you handle
yeah, because
humanity? Now,
Clarence wants to play a cat girl.
well, the
Um,
notion of getting back or losing humanity cost, right, and kind of
it does
dealing with that,
introduce that.
which was a big thing, and also hey, if you're going to be in the operating room, okay, so if you have two major surgeries, just make it a crit, right, in that conversion table. Um, Kind of, if you're going
Well, I
in
mean,
for a bunch of cyberware instead of
and
doing
furries,
individual ones.
furry stuff isn't new to the cyberpunk genre, especially on the Japanese side of things. Like
Mm-hmm.
even Shiro, uh, he had like genetically modified cat girl type things in both Appleseed and Black Magic and or not Black Magic, Dominion Tank
Dominion,
Police.
yep.
Um, and his Anapuma and Unapuma were two of his most famous and popular characters at the time, and they're fucking cat girls. Uh,
Yeah, and they were led
so
by
it
a
wasn't,
guy who was genetically grown from. How was he?
yeah,
A
he
normal
was like
animal.
a,
It's a
I
rat, something crazy. And he's like, "Oh yeah,
think it was a hedgehog or some shit.
yeah."
Like it was something guinea pig, something. Um, I had a weird fan sub of it forever, so my memory is hazy.
All right, so
Uh,
I'm gonna let you go first for the exotics, just so I don't steal your thunder. Fine.
all right. I think my favorite and definitely the most used in my game was the play being. As creepy as that sounds, like that was, I ran a game in the seedy underworld and or in corporate circles where having some arm candy. That's credibility in the boardroom.
Or even just for like
You
spy
show up,
missions.
yeah, you show up to a corporate party, and you're the most gorgeous person in the room next to you. Like, you're seen as somebody who needs to be paid attention to. Um, I don't really have a favorite. Uh, Beyond Play Beings, I liked. I'm not a furry. I don't get into it. I don't even like anthropomorphic cartoons. Um, so it's not my thing. So I guess the Superman is my rule of cool. Uh, just being able to mostly biologically and organically, meaning not actual cyber, uh, like get the most out of a human body you can. I like the concept of that, and like that can very easily be turned into, well, this is like military experimentation. Um, my least favorite, I'm gonna go with the ones that really change the body to something that is just untenable. The insect one, uh,
Bughouse.
like I can see, yeah, Bug Out or the Aqua Forms. Every time I look at the Aqua Form, I think of that South Park episode where Randy turns himself into a dolphin, and I'm just couldn't work.
You ever watch that movie Tusk?
The Kevin Smith movie,
Yeah.
yeah, very much. Um, like the bug could actually, like I could see that happening. I could see people doing that. Um, but some of the more advanced, crazy ones, I don't see it happening. I don't see it working, and the person still being able to like move.
Right.
But then again, my version of the more advanced furries they're fucking kind of nuts anyway. Just like if I see somebody who's like just covered head to toe in tattoos or piercings, like, I mean, I get wanting to be individual and all that, but you're kind of nuts with that shit.
Yep. So for me, I think the most used, um, I would do the rodent.
Really?
Just as like low level fixer. I have a low level fixer. Um, just because enjoys the character enjoys being that way. Rule of cool. Cat person, so I'm gonna have to go with the cat. Although the dragon,
I mean, it makes sense.
as for the one that I despise the most is the fantasy packs, because no orcs, no elves,
Right.
no trolls in my cyberpunk.
I could very much see people giving themselves like elf ears and whatnot. I could see that, especially among poser gangs and shit.
I'll allow
I could see any of that before. I could see any of that before, like giving yourself like uh, digitigrade legs where your knees are. Yeah, or turning yourself into a giant insect. Like I can see the fantasy races. Granted, every time I've ever had anybody who wanted to do it, they were secretly telling me they wanted to play Shadowrun, so I had to smack them around a bit. Not really. Very much wanted to.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But
No, I get it. I get where you're going, and yeah, I don't want elves in my game either. Really.
however, I have
I mean,
done a Cthulhu Mythos in which body augmentation with tentacles and shit like that was introduced.
yeah, I mean, there are rules for tentacle arms, tentacle limbs. They're in Subatica and interface.
I never got Subatica.
It's cool. It's an underwater prison.
Oh, sounds cool.
Yeah, of all the Ionis stuff, that wasn't Dark Metropolis. It was the one I used closest to as written.
Yeah.
Long campaign in that prison.
Yeah. So, wow, we went through this book a lot quicker than Chrome One. I think we did our
Yeah,
format a little
and
different. I have to go and re-listen to that old episode.
I think we talked about a lot of like we didn't actually get into the review for Chrome One
Yeah.
until halfway through the episode with
Sure.
the other one. There was
Yeah,
a lot more
because
ranting in the beginning.
there was a lot of
Um,
things that came out, like DLCs that came out that were pushed back from the
yeah,
interviews. Yeah.
DLCs, the the comic book had just come out.
Right.
There were more movies and TV shows that we were talking about.
Yep.
Yeah, we just went on a much longer rant, and it ate up a bunch of time before we ever got to reviewing the book.
Yeah.
This time, we got our ranting, our show start ranting done really quickly, and just started right into the review. Uh,
So, big question. Which is better, Chrome 2 or Chrome 1?
Chrome One's more influential. It was the first of the gear catalogs for Cyberpunk. Um, and it had some really great stuff in it. It very much, more than any of the other books that were released at the time, it very much hammered home the style over substance ethos of Cyberpunk 2020.
Right.
All that being said, oh, plus it had that fantastic Hajime Soriyama tribute cover with the sexy robot style.
Yep.
All that being said, I prefer Chrome 2 just because it's got twice as much stuff in it, and the stuff is all really really cool.
Yeah. And I think to your point, Chrome 1 set the theme, set the style. Chrome 2 gave you the substance.
Yeah,
Just because
it's
I can turn to any page and find something that I could use in this particular
yeah.
book.
Um, it very much, it was like, because one person did the art for each section, it felt much more consistent than the first Chromebook, where you had several different people doing the art for like the guns. Like I know that there were at least two, I think three different artists doing the guns in Chrome One, and like Benjamin Wright stuff, like uh, the shotgun thing, my favorite gun in the game, the Militech Crusher, uh, looks so vastly different in style and detail to something like the Malorian. It just doesn't feel like they're in the same game.
Right.
Um, with this book, like I said, each section is done by the same artist, so there's an internal consistency. We may not, some of the sections may not be by our favorite artists, like the vehicle section. It it,
Yeah.
it, it could have been improved. Um, but like Benjamin Wright's art for the full conversions, they all look like they're in the same world. They
Yeah.
all look like they work on the same principles. Benjamin put a lot of thought into how they move. He showed us their musculatures. Uh, I don't know. I just There's a reason Chromebook 2 is my favorite of all of them, and it's the one I flip through the most.
And you can tell
Because like
Benjamin was big bubblegum crisis because a lot of these look like boomers.
oh, absolutely, 100%. If you look at the alpha and don't think Bubblegum Crisis boomer, I mean
Or
that's
the
because you've never
Samson.
seen Bubblegum Crisis. Say what?
Or the Samson.
Or the Samson? Yeah, I mean it just is like, and that's one of the reasons I became a fan of Cyberpunk in the first place was the Appleseed and Bubblegum Crisis references everywhere.
Yep.
I was like, these are my people. They're speaking my language.
Right. So yeah. So that's it. You have any other comments around Chromebook?
I mean, I like that each of the Chromebook covers are by different artists, but they're all these weird, like, sexy aliens because it makes me think it gives it that catalog feel. Now at the same time, it doesn't age well. Like these covers wouldn't really go over today. That's why Chrome Black doesn't look like this.
Right.
But at the time, when everybody in America was receiving free Fredericks of Hollywood catalogs, whether they wanted them or not, it made sense.
Yeah.
Again, like
Still
it
can't
always, it
believe
always.
that Frederick of Hollywood got away with that because they were basically
Oh my God!
porn.
I mean, I would get the mail. Like, I'm gonna go get the mail because it might be another Fredericks of Hollywood catalog, and I got to get to that before Mom sees it.
Yeah. But yeah, the age of sex
The
sells.
joys of being 12. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, it wouldn't really go over in today's RPG market. Not, and that's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just, changing tastes, and it's a little blatant. But in the 90s, it was the norm, and it was done. Each of the covers were done fairly well. A little bit of cheesecake wasn't really hurting anything. It does solidify between these and the Doug Anderson covers. It does solidify my absolute befuddlement as to why R. Talsorian never just released their covers as posters. Because I would have bought every single one of them. I definitely would have bought like the Night City cover as a poster, the Cyberpunk 2020 cover as a poster, the Chromebooks as a poster.
I mean,
at least 1 and 2.
Yeah, but I don't know if Derek or David we haven't interviewed Mike, or even Jay. If we've asked them, like, who really owns the license to this art now, right? I mean, sure, our Telsorian can use it for their books, but do they have the rights to do prints, right?
Yeah.
I know the artist for the original cover of Ravengers, he's selling prints, numbered prints, which are pretty expensive.
We talked, the last person we interviewed, Thaddeus Howes, he said he's still got all the art from the interface books.
Yeah.
Somewhere. I didn't get a chance to talk to him at the end of the episode about getting a print of that cover. It's still my favorite piece of it. Yeah. But yeah, they really should have released these as posters. Like it baffles me that there weren't any promotional posters, like just advertisements, like the free shit that you would send out to game stores.
I never saw any displays for Cyberpunk, at least. But then again, I didn't have a lot of game stores that really peddled Cyberpunk. I mean, there was one game store in my whole state that was kind of like did all game systems, right? So
At at the height of Cyberpunk's popularity, like between 1992 and late 94, early 95, I was working at Friendly Frank's Comic Distribution in Kansas City. And part of my job was every Wednesday morning we'd get the new comics in, and I'd have to deliver them. First, I was delivering to a store uh, in Indiana, in Des Moines, which is Iowa, not Indiana. Sorry. I'd have to deliver to a store in Des Moines, Iowa, and then I had a different route where I had like 8 stores going all the way out to Topeka, Kansas, Leavenworth, Kansas,
Jesus Christ,
and a couple of other. Yeah, it was
that's
a long drive that I made in my own car every week. But that also meant that I got to go to like 8 different comic book game stores.
yeah.
Um, and it was the one in Topeka that I picked up almost every single issue I bought of Interface. Um, and I would see the other, like even the smaller companies would put out posters or some kind of advertisement. You'd see them in the back of like ads in the back of Dragon magazine, something.
Yeah.
Um, like I said, the only real ad I ever saw for Cyberpunk uh, was in Animag. There was an ad for Cyberpunk in the back of that one, and that was first edition. Um, hell, it might have been issue 1 of Animag. It was within the first 5. I know that, and I know the R. Talsorian crew worked on that magazine, which is probably why it had an ad. But yeah, no, it always baffles me that this stuff never got turned into posters of any kind, like not even promotional, like buy this in March, whatever,
Right.
like little posters.
Well, I think we talked to Jay Gray about it, but I don't think they're ever going to do
Yeah.
anything. Just because I think it's you think, oh, they should do this, they'll make money, and then well,
Well,
you
I
got to find
mean,
a printer, and granted,
we
nowadays you
have,
have on the demand printing with like
yeah,
all
if you
these
just
other
put out
markets.
a high quality image, people can now make their own posters and they'll
Yep.
be just as good. The problem is I mean, you and I have spent months, hell, over a year trying to track down Doug Anderson,
Yeah.
um, just to like tell him we're a fan.
Yeah.
Uh, the idea, like Artal Sorian, none of them knew how to find him. Um, so getting a hold of these artists and asking, uh, outside of the core group, I don't. Mike Jackson. He's not in contact with them anymore.
Right.
Um, Hawkabout is, and of course Benjamin Wright is.
Yep.
But it's very on a very limited basis. They don't really they don't really they're not part of the fold anymore.
Right. Yeah. I mean, well, we'll see how things go. So guess we're wrapping up early today.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we're at the end of the year. So December, we only have one show, which is the first Wednesday of the month. So
Let me before we solidify that, I've got some medical stuff coming up at the start of December. So
December 4th would be our
yeah,
last show.
I cannot commit to that right now.
Okay.
Because the stuff that I've got going on is actually happening on the 5th. And on the 4th, there's quite a bit of
Prep.
really miserable preparation.
Yeah. Well, that sucks.
Yeah.
So is this our
What are you gonna
last
do? I'm
episode
an
for
old
the,
man.
or do you want to do December
It
18th?
might be. Uh, let's not make any announcements yet.
Okay.
We'll just say if we do an episode in December, it'll be a nice surprise for you folks.
Right. So,
Um, but other than that, yeah, this might be our last episode for the year until January
yeah,
or
and
February. When do we come back?
I think either the third January or third Wednesday in January or the first Wednesday of February. I'll have to take a look at
Well,
our
there you go.
schedule, but usually we want to take like a month or two off just because of the holiday and
Yeah.
unwind and see see what happens on January 6th.
Mm. We're not going to talk about that.
Yeah, we're not
No,
going to talk
no.
about that, but interesting times we live in. I'll just say that.
Yeah, somebody cursed us all. Hadron Collider shifted us into another dimension. I don't
Yeah.
know. Something
Well,
happened.
anyways, so that's our show. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, if we don't have a show this year, I wish all our fans a happy and great next year. We will be returning eventually, hopefully. I'm pretty sure
Yep.
that's my goal to return. So,
That is the plan.
yeah. So you can contact me. I'm at cybersmily.net. I run a website that has Cyberpunk 2020 utilities as well as some minor Cyberpunk Red stuff. Generators like the weather generator, bar generator, combat zone generator, character generator for 2020, but not for Red. There's already a Red companion utility already is out there, and plus you have Nexus that Artosorian's been working with and getting up and running. So I figured I didn't need to dip my toe into character generator for Red. But anyways, that's where you can find me. I'm also on almost all the Cyberpunk Discords. I'm also lingering out on the Cyberpunk Reddits, whether it's Red 2020, Cyberpunk computer game, etc. And yeah, that's about it from me. I'm thinking of getting into Blue Sky. I don't know yet.
Yeah,
I,
I'm thinking about. I'm
I
thinking
still
about that too.
don't know because, like, the other social media. Um,
Well, all the all the comic book artists I care about seem to be on Blue Sky.
yeah, so I might take another dip into the whole social media frenzy again. But yeah, Twitter and Facebook and Instagram were just. They seem to have turned into not places I'd rather hang out
Yeah, regardless of what side of whatever aisle you fall on, like they just between the three of them, they've just become a toxic mire.
in. No matter what you say, you're gonna get attacked. In other words.
Yeah, I'm gonna get attacked just for saying. No matter what you say, you're gonna get attacked. Because guarantee you, somewhere out there, there's a fan of one of those guys, of at least one of those platforms, who's getting all angry about it.
Yeah.
How dare you not like my thing?
Anyways, so yeah, that's where you can find me. Also here on
All right.
Cybernation Uncensored.
Well, I am Wisdom000. My name is Derek Bernier. I run Datafortress2020, uh, the largest, most comprehensive Cyberpunk 2020 site on the planet, full of source books, rules, gear, um, anything you could really want for your Cyberpunk 2020 game, plus the largest archive of Cyberpunk uh, sites that we have lost. I can be found on Facebook at the Data Fortress 2020 the Cyberpunk 2020 and the Cybernation Uncensored Facebook groups. I can be found on most of the Cyberpunk Discords, including Will's. I'm not on Instagram. I'm not on Twitter. Facebook is bad enough. But yeah, by all means, if you want to reach out to us, we'd love to hear from you. Give us your comments, criticisms, suggestions, and complaints. We love, like I said, we love to hear from you. We'd like to know what you want from the show moving forward. We'd like to thank Rob Mulligan and Cybernation Uncensored for hosting us. Yeah, you can find all our past episodes on YouTube at the Cybernation Uncensored channel with the Tales from the Forlorn Dopes playlist. And yeah, I hope you all have a very happy holidays, happy holiday season. You're gonna get mad about that too. And we look forward to seeing you either the 4th or in late January, early February, depending on how things go. Yeah, I'm getting a medical. Well, they're making a documentary about my butthole, so looking forward to that.
Ooh, is it coming out on Netflix or Prime?
I don't know. We haven't discussed distribution rights yet.
Oh, man. Or is it
but yeah, it'll
pay-per-view?
be my first one, which is pretty late at 52.
Yeah, it is.
So yeah, that's where we're at. You guys all have a great night and a great rest of the year. And stay safe.
Yep. See you guys later.
Cybernation Uncensored.